So I'm just going to talk very briefly about our major curriculum and technology initiatives to give everybody an update. We have a major implementation in the investigations curriculum in grades K and 1. FOSS is a science curriculum that's now been expanded to grades 1 through 5. We are expanding our workshop model in elementary classrooms to include elementary reading. As you can recall, the Lucy Calkins writing program is also done in a workshop model. We are in the process of redoing social studies curriculum for grade 5. It will be much more focused. And we're piloting integrated social studies and literacy units that were developed by staff over the summer. That's to give students more facility with dealing with informational text, but also to help elementary teachers who are trying to fit all that curriculum into what is a relatively short day. And we're working with, at Audison and in the high school on the social studies scope and sequence of the curriculum. And we're also working at the high school and the middle school level on the examination of the readings that we do in English language arts to make sure that we have the correct balance of diversification of readings, but also of classics that students need to be exposed to before they move on. So what are we doing to support these initiatives? We have 3 literacy tutors that are paid for by Title I, and 3 math tutors that are paid for. 2 of them are paid by Title I and 1 out of the general budget. In a minute, I'm going to show you a couple of slides on iReady, which is a new adaptive assessment that's being piloted in math at Pierce and ELA at Bishop. We're piloting another kind of benchmark reading assessment at Bishop that's more something that's done by hand. We've had a formal course in supporting instruction for our teacher leaders that's been going on all year, that's being taught in concert by Linda Hansen, who's one of our instructional specialists, and Teachers 21. We've had extensive PD for our literacy lead teachers, our literacy specialists, and our math coaches. We're going to be running 10 mini courses on meeting the needs of all students. Yes, this is required for teachers to have 15 what they call PDPs, or professional development points, in order to recertify themselves in dealing with ELL students and meeting the needs of special education students. But these were also extremely popular courses that we ran last year. And the vast majority of these courses are blended learning, so they may have 1 or 2 face-to-face meetings, and the rest of it is done online. And they generally focus around a book or a set of journal articles that people have found to be extremely helpful in this area. And the last thing is PD to support Tier 1 supports in reading at the elementary. So we've focused a lot of our supports in reading for Tier 2 and Tier 3. Tier 3 is almost exclusively special education students. Tier 3 tends to be a mix of special education and regular education students. Because of Tammy McBride, who is one of our literacy specialists, because of her background as both a grade 1 and a grade 4 elementary teacher, she's only been out of the classroom 1 year, and because of the work she did before she came to this district, she had been at another district, she's really been able to help our classroom teachers in the Tier 1. So looking at the students' diagnostic reading assessment, the DRA score, what can we do to make some inroads in the classroom as well as outside of the classroom for those students. So this is a sample of the iReady report, and the only thing I want to call to your attention is this is a class's report, and it shows for that teacher what percentage of their students, or what number of their students, are 1 year below, less than 1 year below, so basically on target, or just about on target, or on or above the grade level in the major areas that you would be looking at in terms of reading. And this is from a 4th grade classroom. And so teachers were able to get this information, and then they were able to see the average scale score for those students. And then they can drill down and they can look at the individual students' scores in that area, and then it actually makes recommendations as to what should happen in the classroom to intervene for those students in the regular education Tier 1 classroom. So the teachers that we have that are using this at Bishop have been very, very excited about using it and find it very helpful. And they are also able to extract portions of that to share with parents during parent-teacher conferences.
So I should just clarify, where does this data come from? This is from?
Students take an assessment that takes anywhere from 35 to 45 minutes, depending on the student. It's an adaptive test, so if the student is getting a lot of questions right, it makes it harder. It raises the bar for the student. If the student is not getting a lot of questions right, then it will make it easier for the student. It allows us to actually see what grade level the student is at that point, and it's sometimes referred to as a universal screener. So we can see all the way from the kids who are behind to we have several students that were coming up above the 7th and 8th grade level in the 4th grade.
I assume that 35 to 45 minutes, that's for one, either English or math, not
Yes,
both?
that's correct.
Okay.
Yes, that's correct. This is a sample of an iReady report for an individual student. I redacted the student's name, but you can see where they are in terms of, and the specific levels in the areas of mathematics, geometry, measurement and data, number sense, and operations, and algebraic thinking. And so again, teachers are able, and then if you look up at the right-hand corner there, you'll see the margin of error, which is very low for this test. And it really allows us to drill down again for the student that's taking the math assessment, where they need to go, where the teacher needs to go next with them. And the thing that we did was that we did a correlation analysis of the math scores from last year's PARC for our 5th grade students, and a correlation analysis of the ELA scores for the same 5th graders from last year for PARC, and we saw something that's in between a 0.72 to a 0.75 range, which is pretty high for the first time these kids have taken the test. So that means that we're able to look at it and fairly accurately have a good handle on which students will have difficulty with MCAS Next Generation. It also allows us to, we can repeat this assessment again at the mid-year. We're getting ready to do it right after the first of the year, and then at the end of the year. So it's not sort of, we have to wait till the end of the year to sort of get an idea about how the students would do on the next generation. We'll be having some indication. I'm also able to compare my results with my colleagues, the assistant superintendent in Billerica and the assistant superintendent in North Reading, and we're able to look at what their results are as well as ours. So we'll be able to compare how we're doing compared to them. In terms of technology expansion, we purchased Chromebooks so that will allow all fourth grade students to take the MCAS 2.0, which it was originally called, now it's called MCAS Next Generation, online. Those Chromebooks were also purchased at the middle school so that all ELL students can take the Access test, which is the test for English language learners, also online this year. We implemented, as you know, a BYOD program at Ottoson at the high school, and teacher machines were replaced at Ottoson and 2 elementary schools. And we have presented to the Capital Committee regarding our annual request and have received favorable results. So one of the questions is, with all this technology expansion, and I know we've heard in the past that that there's uneven implementation going on, and so I want to show you this chart. It's a little hard to read, but on the far left, you'll see the innovators. Those are the people that are ready to jump in right from the start. And then we have our early adopters. Those are people that once there's a few people around them, then you'll see this, what they call the chasm, and I'll talk about that in a second. And then we have what we call the early majority. And as you see, when we get to that point, it says that about half the staff is at the same place. And then we get into the late majority. Dr. Bodie and I went to with a number of teachers and administrators, went to a conference this week, sponsored by the Massachusetts Personal Learning and Ed Tech Consortium. And this chart was shown, and they said to move people or to get that group of people within a school, to move from those who are early adopters to expanding to those that are the early majority is the most difficult to get. That when you get to the halfway point where you have half of your people that are either innovators or early adopters or early majority, it's a lot easier to get the people on the other side. And I think that's what we're experiencing now at some of the schools, and that's why we're getting this unevenness where there are some teachers that have really jumped in with both feet, and as you heard at the high school, teachers at least have some amount of precedence, but we have teachers at the high school that are using the Google Classroom, very effectively, and then we have other people that are hardly using it at all. The same thing exists at the middle school. I would have to say that this is less the case at the elementary school, but we've had iPads in the elementary school for 5 years now. So I think that's one of the things that we're seeing. So what are the supports we're doing to try to help with that chasm? This past summer, we had a university, an annual thing that we've had for the last 3 years. Our summer curriculum work now involves incorporating technology. Something that I didn't put up there is that we are also offering teachers who would like to do work during the vacations from now until the end of the school year to redo curriculum maps or to update curriculum maps showing how technology might be incorporated. We're offering teachers the stipend to do that. We recently had an ed camp at Audison, which was extremely successful. An ed camp is where teachers come together. The schedule is put up there that we're going to have 3 40-minute slots, and these are the rooms that we're going to use, and teachers were able to put what they wanted to learn about or talk about on a sticky and put it up on, they could propose, and then they would go to the rooms and they would self-facilitate. And, I don't know, did you want to?
It worked out really well. I think we kind of branched beyond technology
Yes.
in a few areas, but that was good because there were things people felt they needed to talk about. It was great. I went to one, I learned all about Google Expeditions on the iPad, where the kids can take an iPad and like move it around as if they're actually looking around sites around the world. So I'm excited to try that in my classroom.
So I guess the last thing is that we've added some additional staffing at Audison to support teachers, and we've increased our internet capacity. However, the state is projecting that what we need for internet for the future will be 1 gig per every 1,000 students. So while we have more than some people have, we have way less than what they're projecting that we will need. David Good is in the process of working with his staff. We filled out some state questionnaires. We're going to be sending them in, and there's a possibility that we would get some additional funding. The other thing we're looking at is we are able to see through this process what other districts are paying, and it's very interesting that districts that have the same internet service provider as we do are getting, some of them are paying more than we're paying for the same thing, and some of them are paying less than we're paying for the same thing. So we're investigating what that is.
Interesting. Yes, Mr. Hayner.
Did you say 1 gig of memory?
No, not of internet capacity for every
Internet
1,000.
capacity for every 1,000? So
For every 1,000.
for us would be, for say, 6 gig,
Right, yeah.
and we don't have that.
Oh, no, we're like a fifth of that, not
Half a
even.
gig.
We have half a gig.
We have half a gig right now. Dr. Allison, if you want.
So we need 10 times what we currently have.
That's what the state is projecting. Right now,
This is not immediately.
What?
this is not immediately, they're saying for the future. And a lot of that has to do with video, because video takes up a lot of bandwidth. And we are seeing that the more video our teachers are using, the more bandwidth we're starting to use. And we're doing a lot of analysis on our network traffic.
Yes.
Can
Mr.
we
Hayner.
get any of that through ACMI in the renegotiation aspect of it?
I believe that would come through the ISP, and ISP is RCN, and that's been already negotiated.
It's our,
But that was negotiated with that in mind. The last thing I want to just bring up, this is, being part of Maple, we're one of the 12 what they call catalyst districts, which are the districts that were invited across the state because of our work in personalized learning, which is supported by technology, but not exclusively with technology. One of the things that they said at the presentation that I thought was really interesting is that in Massachusetts, we rank, if we were to rank ourselves as if we were a country, we rank in achievement #1 in NAEP. In 2014, which is the National Assessment of Educational Progress. So Massachusetts would be #1. But if we look at Massachusetts closing the achievement gap, we would be number 48. So the personalization of learning and the use of technology to better meet the needs of all students is important because of that disparity. That although we are performing well, there is a percentage of our population that is not performing well. And the use of technology allows us to sort of scale up personalized learning, because we've heard all night, and we heard last week, that classes are 25, 27, 28, 30. And for a teacher to be able to personalize learning for every student in that classroom without the assistance of something to help us ramp up to scale is almost impossible.
So does that come with additional funding from the state? Yeah.
Professional development.
We
There
get
is some
professional development
there is
money.
some
Okay.
professional development, yes.
I will say the Maple is a DESI private, it's Learn Launch and DESI coming together in a partnership. That chart that you saw about adapting technology in a school or a school district, you can just take that same idea in terms of a state. And Arlington is one of the early districts that have sort of moved in this direction. We're still on a continuum too. But it's a mindset that we're trying to move toward in terms of personalizing instruction, both for the achievement gap, but also that level of engagement that we've heard a lot about, social emotional barriers for kids to be able to learn. Our theory on this, and I think that we're certainly supported by research, is the more we can even move into this area, we may be able to gain the engagement of some students that might not be as engaged. And you sort of got to be here in school, and you got to be doing something in order that you're going to be learning. So it's also a hook that we would use that would be helpful. You know, the kind of work that you see with iReady, you know, it's one of the things that we see in pockets. We certainly see this at the kindergarten, believe it or not, across the board, is creating goals. And when students can see follow their own progress, that in of itself has some motivation. Some teachers actually create little portfolios in their class so students can monitor what they're doing in different skill areas. So we're moving in that direction. We're certainly not there. It's a process. But what we've come to understand is that we're more there than many other districts. So we're on the early end of things. And the idea across the state is to create the professional development, the nurture the districts are doing it so that we become models for other schools to come and learn what we're doing.
So the technology to support teaching and learning, we've heard a lot about iReady. One thing I want to say about iReady is that the students loved it. They were saying to their teachers, when are we going to do this again? Because as they're taking the test, every so many minutes, it shows them this little video, like a cartoon or something, that they do play like a little game, and then they go back to the
Reward them.
test. And so it sort of rewards them. You've heard about the blended learning mini courses. We're expanding the data that we have in Baseline Edge, which right now is for elementary teachers. Right now, we've put all last year's PARC data in there, so a teacher can sit down and say, show me students who did not make the DRA benchmark, who also did not meet the standards in PARC, and it will actually bring that up for them, and they can see the demographics for those students. How many are special education, how many are ELL students, how many are on 504s. We have been sharing videos of classroom exemplars for literacy, and we're preparing to do similar videos for math, and teachers are giving us great feedback about that. It really helps teachers to be able to watch a video. A lot of times teachers are a day behind the person that's putting up the videos, so they're putting up a video, this is what I did yesterday in my class, this is what worked, this is what didn't work, and then a teacher who might be early into the Lucy Calkins program will watch that video and then do it the next day in their class.
Questions, comments? Yes, Mr. Carden.
Are you going on to the next slide, or?
Yeah.
Oh, I
is there
think
another one?
are we
I thought
done?
it was done.
We're done, I think.
Plans for the future.
Oh, plans for the future, yes. Okay.
So we're going to be meeting with teachers regarding our technology plan and opportunity for feedback. Right now, we're looking at whether we should change the devices at grades 4, 5, and 6. and what devices we should continue to purchase for 7 and 8. There will be 2 community meetings. One is going to be with Vision 2020, which is going to be called Reinventing Education, and we'll be talking about what we're doing in that area. And also, I would like to get some feedback from parents on the instructional technology plan and other members of the community. We're hoping to expand the computer science curriculum in the next school year, as you heard people request that. We'll be having a parent and student camp for students who choose BYOD. I think that was one of the things that we really were not sure, that we really thought the students were more prepared to do BYOD. And so we really thought, we think we'll have a camp, a couple of evenings that all people have to choose from is one evening in the summertime, so that parents can see how we use computers, and how students can use their device, and for students to know how they could use their device, even if their teacher is not incorporating that as much in the curriculum, how they can use it for their own self. Curriculum leaders are working on vision of the student as learner and vision of student as citizen, and we're going to get some stakeholder feedback around that, and that will kind of drive, that's the what we want to do, and the how we want to do it partial is from things like student engagement, student-centered learning. We're working on that. And so we'll define what steps are necessary to get at those visions. And so you'll be hearing more about that in the spring.
Mr. Carton.
Thanks. So it sounds like you are refining or redeveloping the technology plan, and I think that's vital because, you know, it was one developed a long time ago, but it's still unclear where we're going. Like, in 6th grade, we're all one-to-one, and then 7th grade, it's totally hit or miss. They go for, days of using technology, unless they're talking on a device.
I think that varies from
Elementary
classroom.
schools, at elementary schools, some of our schools are one-to-one, some of them aren't. Some of the, lower grades are using iPads, and then suddenly they're switched to Chromebooks. So it does seem like we're all over the place. We need to sort of have a long-range plan of where we're going to go. So I would strongly encourage you to do that and talk with parents as well, because, certainly for, my son was in an experimental 3rd grade class where it was one-to-one, and there was a lot of mixed reaction to that, whether that was appropriate at that early of a level or not. So, but I do think we need to sort of know where we're going. Are we headed to one-to-one for middle school and high school? Is that our goal? How are we going to, if that's our goal, how are we going to get there? Are we going to impose a policy that people have to bring a device unless they can meet a demonstrated need like other towns have? Or are we going to continue with this hit or miss? You can bring one if you want, but what does that create in classes where a few people have it, but the rest doesn't? So certainly I think we need to be very more strategic about where we're going, and then we can try to figure out how to get there.
Mm-hmm. It's been our policy to try to pilot things so that we can get a sense of what the acceptance level will be with not only with the teachers, but also with the parent community. So that's why initially we allowed BYOD at 6th grade, because we knew we had one-to-one. So if a student didn't bring one, there was one that was provided for them. This year when we did BYOD at the middle school, we had 350 parents that did that. But as I said, I think that we learn from everything. Not everything goes perfectly. One of the things that they also stressed at the Maple conference is that we need to create an environment where it's okay to take a risk. However, I totally agree that we're poised right now to redo our technology plan and get a better feel for it. And that's why I want to have a parent meeting.
Yes, Dr. Ellison-Ampe.
As part of that technology plan, I hope that we're going to be working with Capital to look at whatever our plan is, we need to be able to fund it, because we're talking about having devices that are 5 years old and we have to replace them all. And if the funding stream isn't there, I don't think we should be, we should be trying to get it there if we see that that's the need. If we can't make it, I think for us to be having tech plans that we can't fully fund, that's a big problem.
When I go to Capital, they always ask me to give a technology budget for 3 or 4 or 5 years out. And up to this point, we have an agreement that we would, what the replacement cycle would be. The difficult part is that the enrollment and the need and the desire for people has gone faster than we expected. So if we looked at what we had for devices when we started down this road with Capital 3 years ago, we would have probably anywhere from a 3 to 4 year replacement cycle. That doesn't mean we throw things away, because we
Right.
certainly don't do that. But the number of devices that we have in the district has ramped up so fast, and the desire for teachers, as you heard from the elementary teachers, that was one of their highest priorities from the AEA, that it's become difficult with the same amount of money to replace. And so that's one of the reasons why we brought out BYOD, to see what the sort of the appetite in the community would be for that, because that would help us through that process.
Thank you.
Mr. Hayner?
Any
Oh,
thought,
sorry.
any thought of dealing with the technical people that are in town to try to partnership with businesses and stuff, tech companies and stuff, to get either donations or directly involved? Burlington does a lot of it. Burlington literally
They
has
have
connections
companies there.
with computer companies in the town
Yeah,
and
yeah.
stuff, but I'm just thinking out of the box creatively.
Well, I have had people from the community that are in the tech field as advisories, and that they actually set sort of where we were going with the computer science electives and stuff like that. I just want to caution is that Burlington actually has a line in their budget of $1 million per year that they do from their from their own operating budget for technology. The vast majority
Smaller
of their
school
budget is,
district.
yeah, very little actually comes from outside donations.
Dr. Badie?
Right. One of the things that I think that is certainly in the vision going forward is that the high school is going to be one-to-one. That is, by the time that we get the high school rebuilt, and that is going to be, in fact, we may even be behind where we should be at that point. But it's one of the things that we will certainly be looking at. There will be a technology line item as part of the project. That line item is probably going to be insufficient. And high schools that know that that's a direction they want to go, and I think that there'd be unanimity here that that would be a direction we should go, are probably going to have to supplement that. And districts that have done that, it's been in the tune of a couple $1 million. Now, relative to the cost of the whole high school, that's not significant. But I just alert you to that, and actually saying this to the community as well, is that I think that when we get to that point, which isn't going to be that far off, when we have to go for an override in the high school, I think that that is something that we need to make sure that we have the additional funding for, so that we can go. Now, it could be that we will be able to implement some of that even earlier, but that is part of the plan going forward.
Yes, Dr.
Yes.
Snappy.
And I just add that it's not a one-time buy. I mean, the first time we're buying it, but then we have to
replace
be
it.
scheduling in the we can't just buy it once.
That's the problem.
Yeah.
Many districts then go to a leasing model, but they have to, as you said before, you have to know that the capital stream, and we have very small amounts that we lease that's not funded by capital. But you have to know that that stream, that funding stream is going to be there. But in order to afford that many, and also to keep the technology current for the same
Right.
amount of money,
Right.
many people have gone to a leasing structure. And also, many districts have also gone to parents having to pay for a maintenance fee.
So I just want to talk to his parents. I have a middle schooler and a high schooler. We have devices for both of them, but they chose not to bring them. And I think because they feel that there's no use for them, they're not being used in the classroom. And for us, I know unless we have reduction in the amount of 3-ring binders my kid has to bring, adding an extra piece of weight that's not going to be ever used in the classroom. Yes, she could bring it out and use it on her own, but the teacher's never requesting it. That I think is that gap that feels like, and I do think that there are other parents who would have the financial means and be willing to buy devices for their kids if they really felt like they were integrated into the classroom and felt like there was reduction in the binder requirement. I have to say, those things, these are not huge kids, and those are big binders that they have to carry around. So, I know we're in transition. Institutional change is hard. I suspect that in a few years, kids won't be carrying those big binders. I hope that's true, but I just know that I think that's the barrier from my perspective as a parent. Yeah. Okay. Thanks. Anything else? Great, thank you.